Whoa. Hello. What is up, people? Um, what am I doing? I don't know. Just trying to practice more live streaming. What's up, my brother Shant? Maybe it's just you and me watching this. But anyway, I had an hour to spare, and I'm just going to give this a shot to watch. I don't know if you guys have been following, but Mark Miller. I say Mark Millar. I think the spelling of it seems like Millar, but everybody says Mark Miller, so I'm going to say Mark Miller. But I might slip in a Mark Millar here and there. But he has been he's been tweeting up a storm or Xing up a storm, however you want to say it, a lot about comic book stores and the state of the comic book industry. And he's been, hey, what's up, Comrade Sammy? Thanks for joining. Glad to have you here. That's awesome. I thought it was just going to be me talking to me. What's up, Shant? The gang's all here. The mods are all here. So, yeah, what's up, Comrade Sammy? Great to have you here on this fine Wednesday afternoon. So I know it's new comic book day, but anyway, what I was saying was Mark Miller's been talking a lot about the state of the comic book industry, and he is, in my opinion, single-handedly changing the tides just with his influence and just his experience. He's taken no prisoners, and he's producing a lot of great books right now independently, and I think he's not beholden to the mainstream comic book industry much anymore because he's established himself. He's made his money. He's kind of can do whatever he wants, work with the artists he wants, and so he can say what he wants too. Thanks, Shant. I appreciate that. It's true. If there's somebody who I can rely on to be up at whatever hour of the day or night, it's going to be you. So I appreciate it. Comrade Sammy asking Shant, what's up with you? And check out this response, everyone. Packing books. Yes. I cannot wait. Shant's been posting and texting me pictures of his books, and I told him over text that I can smell the printed paper through the pictures. I'm super excited to get your book, Nosfero, The Crypt Walker. Everybody who missed out on that first run campaign is going to regret it, but I know Shant has said a few times that he will be doing a second chance campaign, probably maybe an art only version, all of the above, hopefully. So there is still an opportunity, but definitely for those of us who backed it this first run, I cannot wait. Yeah, we are all excited. I think Shant probably more than all of us, but we are definitely all excited to get that in our hands. So anyway, not to belabor the point, back to the discussion. There was a local comic book store owner. I think he's in maybe Philadelphia. His name is Glenn, and he posted a video about just kind of an honest video of, as a comic book store owner, why he thought the industry was hurting right now, and he himself is seeing it because it's his business that's being affected by it. And what does he say? Your boy Zach, John Malin, EVS blazed the trail. Mark said, cheers, bud, to Ethan. And people lost their minds. Guilt by association is the name of the game. I don't know all that. I don't follow all of what's going on in Comicsgate and kind of the ins and outs. I don't get to watch all the shows or whatever, but there's definitely a rumbling going on, and Mark Millar sees what's going on and kind of is keeping his eye on the independent market. The guy's a smart dude, and he moves so quickly, and so he's on it. Massachusetts, but practically New Hampshire. Is that where the comic book store guy is, Glenn? So you guys can throw the link to that video in the chat. That would be awesome. Anyway, I thought it was a really great video. It's just really honest, and he's just kind of sharing his heart, and he loves comics just as much as all of us. And then the response came. There was positive response, but there was a lot of negative response, and it was just a mess, I think, and uncalled for. And Mark Millar, he saw it, and he responded quickly. Called this guy, reached out to this guy and asked him, "Hey, I want to interview from you on my show, give you a platform." And they had a great discussion. Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's in Massachusetts. Yeah, I should have figured with the guy's accent. He had a great accent for a comic book store owner. So Mark Millar had him on his show, interviewed him. They had a really honest, heartfelt conversation. Again, not political, not even really angry, just kind of stating the facts. And I really appreciate Mark Millar's approach to it all. He just wants to see comics succeed. He has everything invested in it, right? So it's only in his best interest for them to succeed. And that kind of kicked up another flurry, another storm. And Mark Millar's were like, you know what? I'm going to interview a bunch of other guys who have comic book stores. So that was that interview, and it just came out this morning. I believe it was published this morning. Thanks, Sean. Thank you for that link. So this is the link to Mark's interview with retailers. Yeah. So anyway, what I thought was I started watching it, and then I was like, hey, why don't I try live streaming this to see how it works? It's totally selfish. I just want to figure out live streaming, watching something, and kind of commenting as it goes and interacting with the chat as it goes. So that was the whole point of this. So let me see. I have played around with a couple settings here. Let's see if I can do this right. Aha! Hey, Mr. Monkey Boy, 1969. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Wow. I guess YouTube notifications really work, eh? And you guys are available to come and watch. That's pretty amazing. That is crazy. And I appreciate it. So thank you so much for showing up. Everybody's saying, hi, Mr. Monkey Boy, 1969. I'm going to guess that's your birth date. Maybe? So that's just a guess, just a hunch. But anyway, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. So anyway, let's just start watching and see what happens. And I'd love for you guys to just kind of, maybe some of you have already watched this, but as we're watching it, just comment and let me know what you think. But really, it's fascinating. So hopefully this works with audio and all that, but let's go. Let's see.
Well, do you guys know each other already, by the way?
You guys hearing that?
I've known John for a lot of years, but
I don't know Ryan. Don't think I've ever spoken with you.
Oh, well,
yeah, no, I think we may have like at C2E tour at some point, but yeah, not. I'm kind of the fresh face to this group.
Nice.
Well, all good.
Well, listen, if I could just introduce you all, just for the start of this. I was going to do it as a live stream, and then I thought I'm going to bugger that up. The nice thing about doing it like this is we can cut in. We don't want to get out there or whatever, But just to introduce everyone, we've got Ryan Seymour here from Comic Town in Ohio.
Not that old.
How's it going?
John Robinson from Graham Crackers in Chicago with 13 stores, I think. Or is it? Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Crazy.
Great.
Phil Boyle, Coliseum of Comics in
Technology
Florida.
works.
8 stores, Phil, yeah.
10 stores.
What, since last week?
No.
What's amazing is...
No, 10 stores. 10 stores, 2 are like franchises, and then we have
these guys are not just one and done store owners.
Amazing.
They like
and I'm guessing
have a
most
bunch of
of you have been in the
stores.
game. I mean, I know, John, you've been 1987. You're all 20 years plus, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because
October 1st of 2000 for me.
Well, I remember I said online a few days ago I was going to get 3 guys who really knew the business to come on and talk to, because
does anybody know how he found these guys?
But sometimes whenever you get opinions online, like columns and things,
like, did he
people,
just research it, or somebody tell them?
Operation or a very recent
I think he asked. Maybe he asked on Twitter, like, does anybody want to recommend
been in the business for a long time,
retailers
with a very broad range of stores in different areas and everything's going to have? They can be great guys and they've got a great service, but they can't take the temperature the way you guys can. And there's something so weird going on right now, isn't there? I mean, I feel it, like, I mean, over the last few years, I've been looking at all this stuff, because I read all the comic media sites like everybody else.
Somebody's got to help Mark Miller with his video setup.
Everything's amazing. And you see that ICV2 graph, when
give him like better lighting, a little bit of better camera.
And doubling in sales.
He's Mark Miller, for Pete's sake.
I've got a lot of friends who've got comic shops, right? I've been hanging around comic shops for 40 years. Some of my best friends are retailers, and every one of them is struggling. Like, every one of them is struggling.
He's got the best accent.
And that some of them are closing. I mean, great friends of mine are losing their stores, and it just didn't add up, right? And he seems to have his finger on the pulse of what's going on. I'm just constantly amazed at how resourceful he is. Granted, he's multi-gajillionaire because of his properties, so he's got the resources and time, but he seems like a super smart dude. Which is what the direct market comic store sells, isn't it? I mean, you're not in the dog man business, you're not in the manga business, really, because most people who buy manga don't go to a comic store to buy it.
We sell a lot of it. We sell an awful lot of it, actually. We sell Dogman. We sell everything from Sonic and those types of books.
John.
We sell a lot of the manga. We sell Chainsaw
How you doing, John?
Demon Slayer, and
thanks for coming.
Attack on Titan and everything else. And we order
I can
those,
relax. I feel my body relax when I see John pop up in the chat.
When the next issue comes out.
I feel as if the American comics industry was being gaslit into thinking everything was going brilliant.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
What was happening was there was the best of the Japanese stuff, that was coming over. And that's not the same as having a healthy homegrown market, because thousands of people are employed by the American comic book industry.
No problem. Didn't miss much. We're just watching this interview that Mark Miller had with these comic store owners.
Really kicked all this off about 3 weeks ago when you wrote your article for ICV2, where you just said, look, all is not great here. Like 2024 is going to have some challenges. Could you recap that?
It's totally that accent.
Well, some of the things I'm looking at is to give you a quick idea without boring everybody with a lot of numbers and details.
Hey, Cranberry. How's it going, man?
To 2023,
thanks for coming.
14%. Marvel has dropped 8%. That may not sound terrible, but if we take out the ratio variance, which means the actual comics people are reading, DC is down 17% across my chain. Marvel is down 24%.
Wow.
Boom is down 73%.
Are you
serious? The stereotype for
we've had an awful lot of
comic book store owners are just kind of that Stimson stereotype, right? But these guys know their stuff. They know their economics. Like their livelihoods are on the line here, and they are watching these metrics. So I really appreciate it.
Retailers that have worked for damn near minimum wage for an awful lot of years because of the passion of what they loved.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's being gutted. And as I've put out there before, where else could you get 2,000 people across America and more across the rest of the world who are willing to work for minimum wage, 50 and 60 hours?
I will try my best. But I mean, with the A, MILLAR, right? It's like MILLAR. I don't know. But who am I?
So if you had to actually hire that kind of marketing team, it'd cost you millions. But these publishers, they treat us like a cash cow.
Well, Phil, can I ask what percentage is new comics in your store's makeup? Like how much impact is 14% of that department,
It varies between our locations, but it goes anywhere between about 16 and 22%. We've diversified an awful lot into back issues.
Like I said, this guy knows his metrics. It's crazy.
Like literally pallets at a time. We sell a lot of games, a lot of CCGs. We've sold statues. We've sold figures. We've sold pretty much everything ancillary to the comic industry.
Sure. So then those drops are pretty ancillary for it's a small percentage of your actual sales.
Christmas cards.
It doesn't have that much impact, right?
I am horrible
that,
with
the
Christmas
drops?
cards.
The new comics, when it's new comics,
Well, I don't think any of us wants to, slice 18 or 22% out of our sales. We already have done that over the last couple of years, and it's been very uncomfortable. And I think that we can seriously bring some of that back. But I just don't want it to slip anymore. I'd like to see it back in that 28, 29 percentile that it was only 3 years ago.
But 10 years ago, could you have foreseen this? The idea you'd be, for every business to be profitable,
geez,
you'd
guys,
have to
why don't you guys tell me I had this
things you're maybe
thing?
not that interested in? Because you didn't get
Camera.
into this game to sell Funko Pops.
Thanks
you
a
grew up
lot,
reading great
guys.
comic books, didn't you?
That's correct. Yeah, and I've kind of seen the writing on this wall for quite a while. I've written and been vilified for multiple op-eds that I've written.
Hey,
I've been told you don't
KSSS,
know what
happy
you're
birthday to
talking
you.
about, and
This is
maybe
my
I'm
second
not,
live stream.
the smartest guy in any
So yeah, you're
room, but at the
you are
same time, I've been
batting
in this
1,000,
industry for
or
over 40
like you said,
years,
100%.
and I see the trends. I see
Thanks for
where it's
coming.
going. And this, as I put in the ICV2 article, it was no more of a surprise
You guys are the
to
best.
anybody who
Thanks
had
for
2
showing
brain
up.
cells and a list of back issues that they still needed.
I didn't give you
It
guys
wasn't
any
a
notice.
surprise to any of us.
I didn't give myself notice.
For you, Rick, because did you guys catch the Glenn O'Leary interview I did last week? You know, the big thing that went on with Glenn, the guy from Comics Palace?
Mhm.
Yeah, Glenn made, sorry, I picked up some virus at the weekend. We had our Christmas party on Saturday night, and there was 95 people. One of them definitely had COVID, I'm sure. I've been coughing ever since. Glenn O'Leary.
COVID! Oh
He said, oh, sorry. He said the most modest criticisms of the current comic book industry, and he was piled upon, he was wailed on for days and humiliated and so on. Why do you think it's provoking this kind of reaction? Because it looks to me, Phil,
Is there
even
something
from
going on
this
with my
far
camera?
away, that you got something similar. You know, I feel as if as soon as you put that article up,
Let me know.
where you were just spouting
what's going on.
facts, right? You weren't. It wasn't an opinion column. This was just numbers, really. You know. Why do you think people went for you the way they did?
Did that happen? Did
You
that
can,
happen, John?
give
I
10
don't even
bullet
know anymore.
points, and 9 of them can be strictly, here's the numbers, here's the numbers, here's the numbers. And as soon as you touch on anything that may be a social issue or anything else, that's what
Yep.
that's what it all
That's
becomes
exactly
about.
what,
And we don't want that. We want people having discussions about the actual industry.
Mr. Monkey Boy said
and the
earlier.
things that are impacting it. And I believe there's a lot of factors at play here, and I really don't want to get into all the social issues today, because we've had diversity in comics forever, and I'd like to stay there. But at the same time, Marvel and DC in particular are very big tents, right? Marvel could publish everything they want to publish, and they can also publish things like Punisher, who's not some kind of watered down version. They can publish everything. DC did it with Vertigo for a lot of years. At the same time, they were doing Powerpuff Girls over on the side, So big tents, everything can fit under those tents, and if it sells, let it sell.
And do you think it's the Disneyfication of Marvel? Do you think that's maybe the issue here? Because one thing that's always stayed with me is 1968, DC get bought by what eventually became Warner Brothers. And there was a period of, I don't know, kind of pretty lackluster comics for about a decade. You had the DC implosion towards the end of that decade. And it felt as if they almost took time to reassert who they were. They were scared of their corporate owners and everything. And then they got their identity back by the time Dick Giordano came in around about 1981. Right. And then they had their best decade ever once they realized, hang on, we can do cool stuff. This is fine, Do you think Marvel's maybe in that place just now where they're just they're trying not to get fired, maybe?
I think a lot of people in this industry are just worried about their job.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's part of the problem. And I understand where they're coming from. They got a family, they got kids. The last thing they want to do is take a chance with some of the things that Phil put in his article that he recommended they do, puts their jobs on the line because they're long-term plans. It's not going to instantly show a profit.
He is not American.
Dropping 7 more covers on a book is going to show a profit. And then their boss is
going
to say, nicely done. You made more money this quarter than you did last quarter. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place as well as most of us.
It's the downside, I guess, of being owned by someone else, isn't it? Who maybe doesn't have publishing at heart, But I mean, do you guys, John and Ryan, does this chime with you? What Phil's saying? Does this feel familiar to you?
Oh, very much so, yeah. It's one our drop similar number wise for the big two. What we're also experiencing too, and I don't know if Phil, you've noticed this too, but on the gaming side, those numbers have been depressed as well, with Magic the Gathering putting out so much product, kind of like a new book having 15 different covers and no substance to it.
Yeah.
So it's 100%. We're experiencing that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have a lot of safe refuges.
I mean, culturally,
to
we're
run to
seeing the
right now
backlash.
because new comics
Here we're
are
talking
down.
about comics and comic
Seeing
book
that
store
all
owners,
the
but we're
things
seeing
that
it
things
in
like Magic the Gathering and things like that are now available.
schools, all the
being
like Ivy
distributed
League
on
stuff
Amazon
going
the day
on.
they
I'm
come
sure you
out at
guys are
$4
aware of
over
that.
our
It's
cost.
crazy.
And there's a lot of things that when games were down, comics were up. When comics were down, games were up. And right now,
Wow, that's
it
really
seems like
shrunk.
there's a
don't like that.
depression coming in on all of these items. So we
I don't
have
wanna
we
shrink.
have had things like Funko to buoy it.
Dynamic.
But I think Joe Fields
Whoa,
said, I
sorry.
sell Funko, but I didn't get into the comic book industry
That's not
to
good.
sell Funko. But that's
Sorry,
exactly
guys.
what many of us are doing just to survive at this point. And I've got a
Yikes.
staff of 62 people. There's a lot of people who really want us to keep our doors open. So we're doing everything we can to do that.
Sorry about that.
And
And
we
it's also
go ahead.
On you go.
it's also the profit margins on the items. On comics, our percentage off from distribution has dropped by quite a bit. And other products like Funko, we don't get a great profit margin on, or at least not compared to other retail stuff. So those safe refuges are. It's getting harder and harder to keep your fingers in the rock face while you're
Go back
climbing.
to shrink.
I've seen a lot of people the last week or two since Phil's article. They've been really weird about it, right? Online, where they've said, burn it all down. We can build a better industry, like that we need something new, who cares if this goes?
I'm a mess.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but do you not think we have the most amazing ecosystem that's emerged over the last century, where you have 4 decades of newsstands giving way to the direct market, where, like you say, you have these ambassadors for comics in every comic store
Very
Interesting.
much.
who understand it and have a brand loyalty with customers in a way Funko Pop never does. Like those Wednesday Warriors are an amazing, reliable business, aren't they? That you can't take for granted.
Absolutely.
I think part of the inherent problem here, and I don't see this being spoken about, and you may
We're
not
all
like
getting
hearing
old.
this either,
We're all getting old.
but we need consistent long-term
I just
runs
told
on books.
Mr.
We need people that stick with the title, and I need publishers.
Mr.
to stick
Atomic
with the
Boy, I
title.
just told him
Publishers
that.
don't realize how much time.
I'm
it
sorry,
takes
Mr. Atomic Boy,
to
Mr.
sell
Monkey Boy,
a
that he
single
wasn't old,
customer
and then I
signing up
made the
for a
comics
4-issue
really
miniseries.
large for all of us.
And that's
blind
going to
people.
translate to me making $8. And if I can convince somebody to buy a series, if Marvel or DC would continue to publish them consistently and not relaunch every year, if I can convince somebody to buy, say, Amazing Spider-Man or Daredevil or Batman or whatever,
I think that's a big thing. Like
they'll stick
ongoing
through that title.
series. I was
out of
just
habit.
rereading,
Even when a
like,
bad writer,
Uncanny
someone they don't care
X-Men
for takes over that
in the
book.
240s.
And
And
they'll
I
say,
was
you
like,
know what, it's not
240s?
very
Like,
good,
nobody
but I
goes
got
that
all the
high
other
anymore.
issues.
It's like,
But
you're
when these
lucky if your
publishers
series goes up to
constantly relaunch,
6,
sometimes twice in a
10.
year, I don't have the time to convince everyone. I know they stopped it. I know it's not the same creative team. Please sign up for this again. And I'm just losing slivers and slivers. I'm getting killed by a million paper cuts every single week, losing these
That's
customers.
rough. Whew.
Because publishers will not stick with it. I used to have titles, even during the 90s boom, when stuff wasn't that great, and Marvel was just publishing stuff. At least there were 70 issues of Guardians of the Galaxy. And the guy that signed up for #1 was with me for another 6 years. I don't get that anymore. It's constantly
That's so
stop and
interesting
they
to
stop.
think, like,
You know,
6
there
months
used to
if
be a
we're-
site
for
for the #1,
subscription,
wasn't
people
there?
who are into
Like,
subscriptions,
what
or
we
that
used to do
who,
was
like
something like
Mark
Kick-Ass,
Miller
for
calls
example,
Wednesday
we would do
Warriors,
the
that
one
go
for every arc.
go and they have a
So you'd get
box
this
and a
massive
regular
spike, and then it
series.
would slowly
That
tail down. So
the
you
comic
had,
book store
an
owners are
artificial
banking on
income coming
those
in
kind
on
of
it,
regular
it was good.
series to
But
keep you
that's
hooked
gone
in.
now. I don't think people fall for that anymore, don't they?
It's
Yeah, it's
diminishing
gone.
returns.
Yeah.
It's every time you relaunch, you get a little less than the last relaunch.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Every #1 is a jumping on, but every final
I
issue
thought
before
that
is
same
a
thing,
jumping off.
dying by paper
And the
cuts like
jumping on
Shant is right
never
now.
equivalent to the jumping off.
That's
and
amazing.
as always, diminishing returns. Decades of doing this, I've never seen a point where the 6th issue of the previous series.
If I start a live stream, I'm going to
is
make the
lower than
comments
the 6th
big.
issue of the most
I would have a
recent
banner at the
series.
bottom
It is
screen say, if you can read this,
continually
you're too close.
dropping
Genius.
Every single series.
There's always exceptions, of course. Jason Aaron's takes over a title and suddenly you get more readers. And sure, there's always exceptions, but that's the exception to the rule. Phil's absolutely right. It just keeps dropping. You're giving people a reason to stop collecting, which just kills me.
Yeah.
And Walking Dead and Saga, I guess, are two good examples of that as well. Consistent, same team.
I think one of the things that Mark Miller brings up too in some of his social media posts is attracting
cover.
Big talent that will keep people coming. And
it's amazing.
There's very few and far between people who can make a living in comics working in the current structure, because the rates are so low from what I understand.
Phil and Ryan, are you guys seeing a huge drop with Saga since they took these massive breaks and we lost like 40% of the women that were buying that title because they got tired of waiting? I used to order the new trade and get hundreds. And now it's like a fraction of that because these creators think, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go try video games. I'm going to try TV. My fans will be there when I come back. And they're not. The fans move on.
They do move on.
Numbers are down. Battle Chasers is another one. Like Joe Madden left video games. It comes back and it's not the 100+ juggernaut it used to be. By any stretch.
Does anybody in the chat? Did anybody in chat pick up the new Battle Chasers?
6 months.
I didn't. Actually, the current artist isn't bad, but it's not Joe Mad. It's not what we grew up with when he came out with that original series, and so I didn't really pick it up. I didn't want to pick it up.
That they can hold in their hand. So,
but don't you, Phil, do you not think that's a quality issue as well? Because I remember when I was in my 20s when I started at DC back in the 90s.
Yeah, I feel you, Mr. Monkey Boy.
I remember sitting at lunches and I must have sounded so precocious, right?
I do all these guys buy here and there. One of my favorite books right now is Raphael Grampa's book, the Batman book. Issue 2 just came out today, and it looks incredible. So he is a creator. He's like a big name creator who I will come and buy his stuff.
It's a quality issue. It has always been a quality issue. But with
I saw somebody invite Mark. I don't know if they're part of Comicsgate, but they invited him to come have a discussion, and he replied. He was really polite, but he said, "I'm just so stinking busy and trying to build up my own channel," so he politely declined. But who knows? Might happen.
Is there enough though that I'm fascinated by
my cat is meowing at the door because it's 5 o'clock. And
what was being published in January 1968,
he gets fed at 6. Both of them. I have 2. They get fed at 6, and they just start harassing me at 5.
80s, there's an exceptional amount of quality books with real consistency, like Claremont and Byrne. I didn't read that stuff growing up, but I recognize it.
Yeah.
Like Claremont and Byrne and so on, Frank Miller, Walt Simonson. These are all coming out in the same month. And one of my friends made a good point, and he says people will not show up for 1 or 2 good books a month. They need like 20 good books a month. Do you think that's an issue right now, that there's just not enough good stuff?
I don't. I remember unpacking the books, as I'm sure Phil does, in the 80s, and there were 15 books you'd put out on the rack. You'd have guys that come in to get their 2 books.
Sorry.
I don't think they need 15 or 20, and budget-wise, I think as long as they get 2 good books a week, that they're happy. If they're really excited about those books,
the industry needs that every month. I mean, not so much for individual customers, but
I see
a wide range of great books. There's an excitement.
I don't know what individual customer could have like 20 books on their list. That's crazy.
You almost didn't know what to talk about. It was like, and at the same time, Crisis on Infinite Earths was just wrapping up and everything. There's a lot of cool stuff all happening at once. And
I think that's a big thing too. It's like nobody's really talking about the stories because they're hard to track and they're constantly restarting and they're not very good. So there's not that water cooler talk about, oh my gosh, did you see what happened to Wolverine and what's going to happen? Like that's what I loved about Wednesdays or New Comic Book Days, is having those discussions with my friends and like obsessing about the what ifs.
Go out, pull the book out, and look at the app to see what the variant cover they just bought is worth this minute, rather than what it was worth 10
Let us know what you think once you finish that up, KSSS. I was curious about that book too. I haven't read it. I just actually read Kick-Ass for the very first time. Surprisingly, I had not read that, and I finished it in one setting. It's crazy violent, but it was good.
Give the profit sharing. At the same time, I'd like to see publishers not only do that, but also set thresholds and say, okay, retailers, everything above that, we're going to sell
goodness.
you at cost so you can grow your market. It costs us more to put a book on the stands than it costs Marvel, DC, and Image, anybody else. Our cost is higher, and we're the ones who are then stuck with it if we can't sell it.
Yeah.
Give us the books at a reasonable rate over a specific rate, and we can stock our stands.
And I wonder how
People
much
can
of
come in,
that,
they can
what
find things
this
again.
owner is
And
talking
I'm
about,
I
has to
jump
do
into
with
returnability off
the big
that,
two, or it has to do with the
It's stupid
middleman
to
like
give us
diamond
100%
distributors
returnability. That's
and
putting all the risk on your guys as the publishers end.
yeah, how
50%
how
is
the economics
perfect
work
for the
there.
first two issues when we're shooting in the dark and we have no idea our customer's going to try this book. If we think we can sell 8, we'll
It's
probably
true.
order 16 because
If your character is
you guys are
going to
taking
change
50% of the
so
risk as well.
frequently,
This
you're
way
not
you don't
going to
have
invest
anybody
in their
abusing
story.
it and taking 100 copies and returning 97 of them just to get threshold books. That's the other thing. Never do thresholds when you're doing returnability. It makes the two worthless. It counteracts each other, and the publishers never ask us about this stuff, and they just plow ahead going forward. But 50% returnability, no one can abuse the system.
Yeah.
We're both taking
It's
equal
true,
risk.
Cranberry. It's like
Everybody wins. 'cause
if
we have
everything
more
keeps
copies on our
restarting
rack.
over and over again, or
You
you have
guys
a
get more
new
exposed.
version of
Do you feel the
this character or
publishers
that character,
lack respect for the retailer?
then it's like you don't invest. It's like,
And I don't blame them.
why invest in
I've
something
I've
that's
been
just
to
going to
retailer
change?
Meetings. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I've seen guys stand up and complain about, you guys use the color purple too much. My customers don't like the color purple. And they got to keep a straight face and not make fun of these retailers and be like, oh, yeah, we're going to take that into consideration. Like,
You're
I
100%
understand.
right, John.
Because
But at the same time, all retailers, and I do everything I can to support the retail community. I run a retailer page. We do FOC
cool.
notes on a weekly basis.
I thought it had a
We do
Flash Gordon kind of
speculator
vibe.
notes. We have an open
So that's
forum
cool.
of
The art
discussing
looked great.
things that I'm doing in my operation that we share with others. So I'm doing everything I can to help grow the community, the retail community. But at the same time, the guy who's ordering 6 copies of Batman has the same online voice as the guys who's ordering 400 every month.
Yeah.
So, it's everybody's equal on the internet, and I think there are some good things to everybody having a voice, but at the same time, when it comes down to business and numbers, we need to start looking at what's moving the needle, what's really putting the books in the stores, what's really selling comics.
Because my friends in retail all across different countries all seem to have the same issue right now, which is they're getting books they can't sell. They feel like they're trying. They want to sell these books, but the product that they're getting isn't the stuff their customers want. Is this a thing you think is broadly the case, and why do you think publishers aren't listening to you when you say this to them? Because this must be a very common thing you're saying to them.
My question is like,
What we're
how?
commonly
What is
saying
their
there's too many books,
form of
and no one publisher can
communication
control
with the
that. They're going to
publishers?
cut back
Like,
a little, but again,
how do they
everyone's
get
afraid of
heard by
letting
these
the other guy take
publishers?
market share. So I understand the position.
It's like,
they're
do they
in.
email them
The
and say, "Hey
retailers
guys,"
themselves have to put their foot down.
or is it just
And,
what they
I
buy
never
do they,
like to
with their
admit it,
wallets?
Phil does a better job at this than I do. I visited his stores, and he'll have hardly any independent, small press, tiny books to take a chance on because he's taken all the chance. And so many of us retailers, myself included, operate under fear of missing out. Like if I don't have this new Scout title, or if I don't have this one on my rack, even if it's just 1 or 2, I got to have it, or they're going to drive down the street and try the other guy. So then suddenly you got 2,000 retailers buying a book there's zero demand.
That's a good
for.
question. I don't think they would,
Just to have it on the
Zero
rack.
copies.
but who knows, right? I don't
made a
I
decision
don't think
some
there's a
years ago
communication
that
loop
anything that was
between
selling
publishers and
less
comic
than
store
10
owners.
copies
I
of,
think it would be
as a chain,
beneficial.
we were not gonna rack that. That's 1 copy a store. How
I
can
think I
afford
was
to rack
reading
that and
somebody who
hope
was in this
to
industry
sell
for a
that?
long time
The
was
best
saying there
somebody
used to be
do is
people, that was their
break even on that on
job,
a
is to
monthly
stay in
basis.
touch
It's
with
taking up space. It takes up time.
the community or
It's
the comic
just-
book stores.
I can't
You know,
do
this is
that,
before social
especially
media.
when a lot of times
And that
we
was their
ship it
job, is to
with
kind
a
of
35
get
or
the
40%
feedback
discount,
and then bring
that
it back
just-
up the food
that's
chain.
just
But
untenable. It just does not work
according to that
long-term for
person,
any kind of sustainability.
those positions
And
don't
again,
don't exist
Go back to
anymore.
what Phil said
And
about
therein
direct
lies the
market
part of the
potentially disappearing
problem.
inside the next couple of years, Like again, it's naivety on the part of the people
Right.
online. But I
Yes.
see a
I
lot of
understood
people
that
saying,
KSSS.
"Oh, it'd be awesome to lose Marvel and DC. You know, who cares? It
Yeah,
means
that
then
makes
all the
sense. That
creators
makes
can
sense.
just
Duke
come
McQueen,
forth
that's a
and
cool
be
name.
themselves and blah blah blah." You know, but it's like, as much as I'm a massive advocate of the indie scene, do you guys agree that without Marvel and DC, there
I
is
guess
no
so,
indie scene?
yeah.
Like you've nowhere to
Yeah.
sell your book.
You really,
They're the anchors.
your
Like,
wallet
if
speaks.
weeks where
So
there's really low Marvel,
if they're still making their
titles,
money,
really
they're not
low
going to
DC
care.
titles, there's also a significant drop. Like people are coming in for your Superman, their Batman, their Avengers.
Yep.
It's great when guests are less likely to take a chance on a book that isn't a big publisher and doesn't have big creators on it. So yeah,
Right.
no,
I think
we
you're
need
right,
those
Mr.
big
Monkey
too.
Boy.
We do.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do. We need that foot traffic that they bring in. But it's also, you know, guys like yourself that have worked at those two, it's so much easier to sell your books because of it. And I got a quick question for you because I never heard. I appreciate your experiment with the nightclub, which was a great miniseries. And you took a chance and priced it at $1.99. And I use that as a selling point. You guys are all crying. They're too expensive. They're too expensive. I'm like, you got an A-list creator. You got a great artist. It's $1.99. Did it work out? Was it?
We actually did roughly double what we would normally do, you know. And I was like, excellent. And then paper costs went up so high. Paper costs went from, the cost of putting the book together went from like 12 cents to about 72 cents or something, you know. And I was like, oh, great, you know. So we didn't lose money, but if we'd done it 3 years ago, it would have made a lot more money, you know, when paper was a little bit cheaper. But it did roughly double sales, you know, maybe 80% up or something, you know. But
Was that your
the paper cost
expectation?
made it prohibitive, so I wouldn't do it again. You know.
Was that your expectation to double it, or were you?
Did any of you guys pick up Nightclub?
I didn't know.
I'm not
actually, you know, I didn't know, but
I wasn't super into the premise, but the art looked cool, and then those characters appeared in big games, so then it made me like, oh, maybe I should read like the compilation. So it's kind of smart how he planned it out.
Looking after the kids that night, and she got £50, right? Because we were out for quite a long time. And she got £50, and she says, I'm going to buy 2 bottles of an energy drink tomorrow. And I was like, what? And she told me there was this £25, you know, which is like $30 energy drink called Prime, right? And she says, oh, it's amazing. And I was like, can you not get an energy drink for like $1 kind of thing, you know, like £1? And she was like, yeah, but this is the one everybody wants right now, you know? And I realized if somebody really wants something, they will pay for it, you know? So sometimes if you drop the price too much, it doesn't really matter that people are going to buy it anyway. I like to keep things as cheap as possible, but do you find price as a factor?
I have a strong opinion on this one. I don't think price is as important as people think, to a limit. Obviously, you can't charge $28 or £25 for a comic book and get away with it unless it's a giant collected book. There is a ceiling, and I think it's important that we all reflect that ceiling, but there's also mistakes made. I'll ask Ryan and Phil if they agree. If Spawn was $3.99 instead of $2.99, would you not still sell the same quantity? And most customers wouldn't even notice.
Yeah. That's been an ongoing thing. Is, are we leaving $1 a month on the table? Right. And I'd say the answer is yes. I think $3.99 is a fine price, but when we start seeing first issues come out at $6.99, that is a barrier to entry. And as we all know, number 2 has a significant drop from number 1. So if number 1 is
there's another week, past week where I bought, I think it was just 1 or 2 books.
Yeah, especially if it's a
and
reload,
my
which is a jumping off point.
My receipt was like, I was like, whoa, and I had to look at the cover price, and it was like, $6.99 for some books, $7.99.
Not smart.
I think Frank Miller's Ronin too is pretty expensive. I mean, it's a thick book, and the quality of the print is nice, but it's a lot.
Simply too much for a lot of people. So.
And what do you think was the turning point? Because we all feel something's changed, you know, and it was probably, for me, I would say around 2016, a turning point in people's enthusiasm, because I don't know what you guys are reading yourselves compared to what you were reading 10 years ago, you know, but I went from reading maybe 20 books a month down to maybe 1, you know, and a lot of my friends have just stopped reading altogether. They would buy piles of stuff that just piled up in the house, and then they cancelled their orders and so on, you know. What do you guys think was
fascinating when they're talking about prices
for people?
For independent comic book producers? It's a totally different story, right? Like as everybody's figuring out the price of their books and how many pages, like quality of the print.
6 or 8 years ago that it really took a definite lack of editorial direction in a lot of ways. And DC, people love to hate on Dan DiDio and they hate to love him and all this kind of stuff. But at least it seemed like he had a cohesive publishing plan. Didn't always work the way he wanted it to, but at the same time, at least there was a plan.
Yeah.
And
Dan DiDio, for those of you who don't know, he's working with Frank
challenges
Miller
have
now at Frank Miller
how many
Presents.
people at Marvel or DC who work there have a little list in their wallet or on their phone of the back issues they're looking for? I'll bet you it is a 2% of what it was 20 years ago.
But think about this.
Fans, yeah.
But Phil, that time period you're talking about is when Marvel, in particular, as a brand, and even DC, in global terms, was the biggest it's ever been in its history. I mean, you
Yeah.
could sell anything with the
I
Marvel
remember
brand.
when I
I
could
would
get a
see
book
bald
for like
55-year-old
I
men
remember when I
walking
could
around
get a
with
book for
Marvel
like
t-shirts,
60
you know,
cents.
it
That's
is
how old I
easy
am.
Marvel
But
to
I
anyone,
think the
you know?
sweet spot for me
Why
was
the
like
hell
$1.
could nobody sell Marvel comics?
That was really nice to
between
just be able to get
2016
a
and
book for $1. Like it
2020
was
when
really
it was at its hottest,
obtainable
when the
for
movies
me
were
as a
making
kid.
2 and 2 billion.
The drop off I felt for us as a chain was when we lost all the top tier creators to Hollywood pitches.
Yeah.
I was getting people I'd never seen coming in for Saga every month. They were coming in for Sex
Nice.
Criminals. They were
Thanks,
coming in.
Cranberry.
Image was on fire. They were hiring all these people and then brought new people in, and everyone was excited. I can't wait for the next one. Then all those creators got attention of Hollywood and said bye-bye.
Yep.
And those books just dried up.
Yep.
And then
Like I know Stephen
it was,
Platt,
and that's where we
he
saw
working in
the big drop. But I
Hollywood
think
now,
2016, 2017
or
fair.
has been for a
After the
while.
initial New 52 excitement and boom.
J. Scott
And
Campbell.
2010s were fantastic. You were doing books. Fraction was doing books. The mainstream guys and people were excited.
Joe Mads doing
and we
games.
lost all those creators. I always worry about old man syndrome. I'm in my mid 50s, and I don't want to be the guy that's always, I dealt with those when I was a kid going into comic stores, and you dealt with these guys. The 40s were the good time. I'm like, these comics are unreadable. Like it's just like children wrote these. They're terrible. So I try to make sure I'm not becoming that, but I look at the creators at these A-list companies. I'm like, I don't know these guys. And there almost seems to be homogenous house style again at DC and Marvel.
Yep, I agree.
Instead of having the superstar artists working on these books, they've all moved off to do their own projects.
Can I just say the only way you can tell you're getting old is if your criticisms aren't sort of like in line with the numbers. So that when the numbers are cratering and you're hating it, you're right. It's nothing to do with age, So if the numbers are doing gangbusters like the early 90s and you're saying this is all garbage, you're getting old, But
yeah,
the numbers are slipping, so you're correct,
Yeah, I got one of the old man yells at clouds memes sent to me over my last thing, and it's like, I'm sorry, the numbers are there. It doesn't matter if you like what I'm saying. You can refute how I said it. You cannot refute the fact the numbers are down. The publishers know it. The retailers know it. The only ones who are still propping this up, are some of the editors here and there who are saying, oh no, everything is fine, as Rome is burning. So
is it because they don't want to admit they were wrong? Which I think you have to do in business sometimes, because you take a risk.
Yeah, it's true.
Sometimes it doesn't work, and
It's
then
true,
you have to go correct
KSSS.
and do something else. Don't you?
You could get your dollar would go far. And here it's like you got to save up for one issue of one book that might last for 3 issues,
Again,
and then you're out.
Yeah,
it's hard to retain an audience like that, or build an audience like that.
Why ever take the blame and say, we tried this, it didn't work, it was a mistake, and all the fans didn't understand. It's better to blame the fans or the readers than to blame yourself if you're worried about your job.
And in a way, I mean, I know millions of retailers, right? But you must know even more than me. What's the chatter among other retailers across America? What's that kind of underground whisper? Are they disappointed in what they're being given to sell?
It's very tough selling some of the books today.
I don't know if it's just, maybe it's the old, maybe it's an age thing, Cranberry. I think it's just the way that social media works in this day and age that we live in. It's like, people can't have a discussion anymore about what's working or what's not. It's just
who's going to buy
me versus you.
It's a new book.
And if I don't like you, you're dead.
The same
And I'm gonna
people who
do
bought
everything in
last
my
project
power
are
to
gonna
like
be
crush
interested
you.
in this project. The problem is,
As
here's
opposed to
two
like, hey,
creators
let me
you've
hear
never
your
heard
opinion.
of.
Oh, let's discuss
Here's
it.
a
Let's
book
find a
that's
middle
being
ground.
rebooted with a
It's not like
completely
that
different
anymore.
character. Who are we going to sell that to? Because it's not an apples to
I agree.
oranges or an apples to apples comparison there. So we're kind of guessing on so many of these books right now.
So is that your solution?
Maybe.
I mean, you guys are on the absolute front lines. I see so many opinions, but it's people who think about comics for 5 minutes every day. You're
Opinions?
thinking about them
I love
24
that.
hours every day, right? Like, is your solution to get A-list creators? You know, that would be a game changer. If Marvel and DC splashed the cash and got really high-end talent.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to hear what Ryan thinks, but absolutely.
Yeah, Jim Lee could draw the phone book and it would sell. Like we don't have, as much as I love up and coming creators being brought to, like, you know, being put on books, those big rock star names aren't, like, they're not doing stuff
And
anymore.
I am
And those
unfortunately
automatically
over
pull
30
people
too,
back.
so
Lapsed
it's
readers
probably
will come
why.
back for a book. Yeah, I mean, we need them. Like, it really helps us put books into people's hands.
I mean, the thing, what a lot of people don't understand is if you do a creator-owned book, you know, even optioning it can be like what you get paid. I mean, me and Bendis were the two highest paid guys at Marvel when we were at Marvel, and 2 movie options, just 2 options for 18 months was
I
our
agree,
salary
John.
at Marvel. You know, so I mean, for a 4-issue miniseries that then carries on for the next thing, you know, so the money in Hollywood is insane, you know, compared to comics. Do you think, as well as addressing,
I want
the
to know how
relationship with the
much Mark
retailer and
Millar
coming up with new
pays
thresholds and so
pays
on,
his
it
artists,
is
because
time
he
to move
always
everybody
says
back
like,
to
I
a
pay my
proper
artists
royalty
well,
deal if they can't
and
afford the
they
upfront
are
money
well
to give
taken care
some
of, and
crazy
he's
back end.
always saying that, and I'm pretty
I'm
sure
going to
he
say yes off the
can
bat
back
on
that.
But Mark, you could probably answer this better than anyone else. If you were being paid to develop a new script for a series, you'd expect to make X amount of money.
Mhm.
But Marvel and DC will take the script that you wrote for them and pay you a fraction of that.
Mhm.
They're going to take that script and make it into a movie or
So
a
we
TV
can't trust
series,
each other,
and
Cranberry.
then maybe pay you more on the other end.
Yeah.
Marvel and DC should not be treated as publishing companies that have to make a profit. They should be treated as R&D companies for these multi-billion-dollar franchises. Put some money up front, make this stuff good, because the stuff that's coming out now, it's not going to be movie worthy. It's not going to be TV series worthy. And we've seen some of the stuff as we've run out of some of the key storylines that happened in Marvel Comics. And now we see that we're getting into very secondary characters and everything, and they're just not moving those movie needles like Disney would like them to.
I mean,
So they should be putting the money up front, not on a back end.
working in a studio has taught me something that I didn't appreciate when I was outside the studio, which is that
I
Hollywood
totally agree,
really needs source
KSSS.
material. It
It's
sounds
so
crazy,
easy
like,
to
you don't
like
think- you think
fling your
screenwriters can come
poo
up with stuff, but they
in your
can't. They
opinion
can't.
when you don't have
Think
to
of
do
any
it to somebody's
Spider-Man movie
face.
or anything, you know, that isn't based on some Stan Lee comic or whatever. You know,
yeah,
there's the
it's a
scene
mess.
you remember is the scene from the Stan Lee comic and so on. You know, there's something. There's some integrity to the DNA that just makes it work, and it's the same with novels and everything too. When they do original screenplays, they're so few and far between, and they certainly aren't the ones that become big, massive franchises. And I think you're right, because Endgame was the end of Marvel cinematically, and then what they've had to feed on since then is all the sort of less good comics, haven't they? I mean, they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel now in terms of stuff that they can adapt. So for their own sake, you know, if they invested in the print side of things, they could be making billions of dollars on the other end.
Well, thank you.
Well,
I think.
If you really want to put a finer point on that,
Hey, Mark's Music Obsession.
Name 5 Marvel and 5 DC.
Just dropping in.
Trade paperbacks that are must-reads that have come out in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I can't name.
No, it's, you know what?
Yeah.
You are not alone.
There's
House on the Lake.
And that's why this discussion is so
Okay.
fascinating.
And
So
you could
yeah,
say,
just enjoy. Just sit back, and I
Batman
encourage you
White
to
Knight. There's
watch
a
the
few
whole
things we
interview
really recommend, but for the most
when you get a
part,
chance. It's really
they're
great.
just not there. The storylines are not there. It seems to be, who can we introduce a new character that might get pigeonholed into something, and we can make, bank on that.
Mhm.
There is no editorial direction.
And what about the number of comics? Because
Flying
I'm
poo.
fascinated by the
That's
fact
what
that I
Mark
was
Millar
looking
would
quite
say.
recently, I was looking back
Flying
at the
poo.
1940s, 1950s, 1960s, and the number of books that DC was bringing out in a particular month was staggering. You know, I couldn't believe it. There was almost nothing. Like, the Flash was like a quarterly or something, you know, Green Lantern's bi-monthly, you know. So these books, they'd hardly anything out there. Like Superman had
This
2
Uncanny
titles
X-Men
a
run that
month
I'm rereading with Mark Silvestri
because
and
it was selling a
Chris
million
Claremont,
copies, you know?
they were
So,
coming
like,
out
you
bi-monthly,
must feel there's too many
twice a
books
month.
just now. You know, when you
Crazy.
look at a shrunken
And you could tell some of the
press
issues were
market,
rushed and they
so
had
to
some
be bringing
brilliant
out the same
artists,
number of
but
books
it
you had
was,
in the boom
I can't imagine
of
they were
15 years
cranking that
ago,
stuff out.
does it seem mad to you guys? It seems crazy to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's quantity over quality at this point, in my opinion.
And what I don't understand is how are these publishers staying in business?
They're not.
We're one of the largest comic chains out there, and I order next to nothing on these small press books.
Yeah.
And I sell next to nothing on the small press books and get stuck with a lot even. I'm like, I don't see the numbers adding up to keep themselves in business. I don't know if they're all taking their inheritance and living their dream, or if they've got backers that think this is all going to pay off at some point.
I think that's a big part of it. I mean, from what I understand, there's a lot of private equity cash has gone into these things in the hope they can flip it and do what we did with MILLAR and sell it to a bigger company, you know? And they're hoping if they stick 50 million in something, then they get 500 million when they sell the company, you know? But that's the big mistake people make, I think, in business generally is to think what happened 5-10 years ago works in this particular period. We sold MILLAR at the perfect time when Marvel
I'm sure
was
Shant
absolutely on the
got
ascendant.
all the
So the
quotes
studios
from
were
that
looking for
movie.
the next Marvel. Whereas right now Marvel's hitting the rocks, you know, so trying to sell a comic book company just now, I think would be very difficult.
Yeah, the difference is you had a proven track record. You've gotten your properties, your ideas turned into films. Yeah. These other guys, they're just swinging for the fences.
It's odd,
but
you know.
That's what new creators do, though. You know,
yeah.
I can't fault them for that because everybody started somewhere.
Yeah.
And even some of the most classic creators who we've talked about here, some of their earliest artwork was in fanzines and everything else. So I can't fault that. You know, and Image took a lot of gainers on some of these guys who had never been heard of. And all of a sudden they're superstars writing X-Men and everything else. So I don't think that's a bad thing, but at the same time,
size of his noggin.
It used to be easier to support that when our costs of entry on those books was so much lower.
Yeah.
And now there's more books. Marvel is sucking all the air out of the wallets right now with all their variants and everything else. And anyone thinks that's not a very deliberate marketing plan.
I'm gonna try. His head is like Sputnik.
Like when you'll have a book
it's spherical,
around,
quite pointed in parts.
Head with Marvel, and so the last 2 or 3 issues, and it's one cover. We don't know how many we need of that one cover. Like how many people are actually reading it versus how many people are buying one of every Scotty Young cover. So, yeah, no, it's got to be intentional.
Here's a question. People will kill me for this question, right? They'll hate this. As retailers, what would you rather a big name creator did? His own create her own projects or a big book at Marvel or DC?
Big book.
They both have their merits.
What's that?
They both have their merits, but the fact is, if Marvel has a massive hit, like when they did House of X, Power of X, it brought fans in. They came in for X-Men. They came in for great.
I didn't even read House of X.
About it.
Did anybody read that? Oh, maybe I did.
Marvel,
I can't remember. I got so confused. There was too many of those, like
strong image. We don't get a strong
House of X, House of M.
Not in comic
I got
stores,
confused.
and we need that. We absolutely need that.
Because I feel I mentioned this on Twitter a few weeks ago, and everybody went crazy. But I said, like, although we work in the independent scene, we kind of owe it to where we came from, but two, to keep the independent scene afloat. Everybody needs to go back and do one project at least at Marvel or DC, you know, to help boost everything up again. And then your books are going to be helped by this, you know, down the line.
But Marvel and DC don't pay, so they don't support their creators.
Absolutely. It raises your profile being on these high-profile books, so then people remember that creator, and we're then able to cross-sell, which is what it's all about. The only reason I'm carrying this new Zorro book is because of the creator. Normally, if it said Zorro, I just go, skip. Nobody cares about that character, and I move on. But his White Knight raised his profile, and now we're going to carry Zorro in the stores.
But for you guys as well, though, you know, like, do you feel like everybody coming back and doing a big Marvel DC project is going to be great for the stores that are maybe hanging by a thread?
Yes, but it can't be just a 4-issue limited series. They
Yeah.
have to take it on for a year, or like Hickman did, take
Yeah.
it on for an extended period so it draws people in, keeps them into the story for a while, and isn't just handed over. As soon as Hickman was off that,
Yeah.
Marvel splintered it into 68 titles or whatever, and nothing sold anymore. It's like,
Or
oh, this
like
is a
a
good
fashion
thing.
show.
Let's
I
go
can't
ahead
stand
and
that fashion
get the printing
show
press
stuff.
going, and off we go. And next thing you know,
It's like,
nobody
okay,
wants to follow any of it, and
that's
they had
not
a
the X-Men that I grew
real
up with.
winner on their hands.
That
Yeah,
felt like Marvel's last really good storyline, the Hickman X-Men. Like that felt like the last time it was a proper event, And what would you say? What were the numbers like for that compared to typically X-Men doing at the moment? Is it much of a difference? Because we don't.
Exponentially higher.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
like Avengers versus X-Men days or Civil War days where people wanted it, and they returned to the comic store because they heard about it.
Wow. And it's dropped considerably since then.
Oh yeah, we're down to about 25% of it. Unfortunately,
You're doing 25% of what that was doing.
yeah,
Yes.
Hickman. Yeah, their run was so amazing, and as people, even the casual readers that weren't really following it for Hickman, as they noticed that quality difference, that long-term planning of the story difference, they just dropped. Like it just didn't work for them anymore.
But that says everything about how important the creator is, then, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. If the creator is not bringing quality, people won't buy it anymore. They're not willing to take a risk, especially if they know it's only going to be like a 6-issue miniseries. Yeah, there's no reason for them to invest in it for long-term purposes.
And what about back issues? I mean, are you guys are you aware of what your percentages are in terms of like back issues to regular new
I
comics?
bet it's
and everything?
non-existent.
Have you seen that increase over the last few years, or
Very few stores that I go
I
to
put together
have
a
back
chart for you
issues
for 2013
anymore.
versus 2023, the 10-year difference.
Oh wow!
You want me to send that over? Do you want me to screen share it? I can show
If you
you.
can, if you know how to do that, that'd be amazing.
Send it or screen share.
Well, if you can do it, that'd be great because I have no idea.
Screen share has been disabled, so if you're not familiar, then I cannot
That's on
screen
your
share.
end,
But
Mark.
I'll send it over to you. And,
Okay. So what's the rough percentages though? What would you say?
It's going to be different for all of our stores, but yeah, here, I'll send it over and then we'll let the other guys talk.
Yeah, we definitely our back issues have been up. The interest has been up.
Really?
And granted, prices have been up, even though they've been going through a bit of a correction.
I wonder what they define as
Can't
back
triple
issues,
the
like
price and stay there forever.
how many
But,
years back?
We're seeing a lot of people where they used to buy new books. Now instead they're buying the back issues because in many cases the stories are better, the characters are more defined, and I think a lot of the artwork is better, but that's personal taste. So, and the price, if you're going to spend $6 for a new book or $6 for a back issue, and we saw a lot of them less than that, yeah, it's a better deal.
And what age are these guys who are buying the back issues? Is it older guys who reminisce, or is it younger guys who want to get in on this?
No, definitely
A
older
mix
guys.
of both.
Really?
A mix of both, actually.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely people coming in that, especially coming out of COVID, there was like this, I don't know, nostalgia kind of thing, and people started coming back and rebuilding what they had in the past. But there's also a lot of younger
That's kind of what
readers
happened
that are
to
going
me.
through, and they've heard about these iconic story
As far
arcs
as
from
like
the 80s
looking
and
at
the 70s, and they're trying
older,
to track those books
trying to
down.
find older issues,
So I mean, it really,
things that
for
really
us,
excited me
it's
about
been-
comics.
Been both.
That's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Here's an interesting fact about, I think Ryan and Bill would both agree with me on, is DC trade paperbacks outsell Marvel trade paperbacks by a lot.
Huh.
They're collected stories. They seem to write the comics for these formats, and they have a lot of hits. Our top 50 is always full of DC books. Marvel rarely makes it on there unless there's some kind of movie tie-in. But on the flip side, Marvel back issues sell double what DC back issues sell. It's the same material,
Almost
Yeah.
but the collectors want it in the comic book form for Marvel. And if you think about it, a title like Spider-Man, it's been running since '62. How many great storylines or trades are there for Spider-Man? 3? 4?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. They didn't write. They wrote it as a soap opera, and there wasn't really self-contained stories to collect there.
I don't know. I'd argue if there's some that the average just 12-issue run of anything in the 70s was better than a lot of the books they're coming out with now, because there was
Really?
an ongoing cohesive
It's
storyline.
true.
It's funny because I grew up reading comics in the 70s, and I've always looked back and felt how fortunate I was to become a teenager in the 80s when comics came into their own. Because if they had stayed like they were in the 70s, I would have quit.
Yeah,
I mean, they really
I think
grew.
The 80s brought it to a whole new level. I do agree with that. So.
Yeah.
Do you not think it's like music though, and whatever you were into when you were a certain age is just your favorite thing as well?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, my favorite comics are like Kurt Swan Superman comics. Nobody cares about that except me, you know. But it's just because I read that when I was 12. You know, I loved it.
It's ingrained in us at that point. Yes.
Yeah.
But yep. So.
But do you think like movies? You know, we'll wrap up soon. You know, because I know you guys have got proper jobs to get on with. I'm sitting about
8 more
here.
minutes.
But like, yeah, the movies help comics. You know, because I always remember I was a teenager, but starting to break into.
This
the
is
comics industry, but I
interactive,
was
John.
sneaking into parties when the DC guys
Love
were
it.
over in London in 1989 for Tim Burton's Batman, and I somehow blagged my way into a DC party with a free bar and everything. It was all really cool. And what everybody was all pouring champagne and everything about what the Batman comics were selling, like because the anticipation of this movie really got people excited. And anything with Batman on it was selling. And it was funny, I was talking to Denny
Such
O'Neill.
a great area.
And Denny O'Neill said to me, we actually feel so good about the way this is going. We're thinking of introducing a third Batman title. You know, it's a terrible risk, but we're thinking about doing this, you know. But it felt like the movie was helping it in a way that, do you think movies help things now?
It's
I was
different.
selling a gross of T-shirts a week in
Yeah.
1989
Yeah.
when Batman came out. I couldn't get them fast enough.
Yeah,
They were
I was
selling
hunting for those
that much
T-shirts.
stuff that quickly.
I had one.
But
Had Frank
Same
Miller's
here. I
Start
spent it all
Night
day
on there.
processing T-shirts for people. Anything with the bat symbol did sell. And I used to argue against the fact that movies helped the comics because every normal person you'd speak to that saw the Iron Man film or whatever film they really enjoyed, they'd all come to me like, you guys must be killing it now because everyone's watching these Marvel movies. And I'm like, well, what's the last comic you bought? Oh yeah, I don't buy it.
It's true.
But but Walking Dead, it works, and Kick-Ass, I always remember, this is a fact that always stays with me. The 7 weeks before the Kick-Ass movie came out, we sold 100,000 copies of the Kick-Ass hardcover at $25 a pop, you know?
Same with Watchmen,
Hardcover.
yes.
So, but is it just that after 2010, there was just so much comic product out there in terms of cinemas, and then television made it even worse, do you think?
Yeah, initially it was huge. Like we sold hundreds of copies of Watchmen when the Watchmen movie came out. Similar sort of thing with 300. But with each year, it sold less and less and less and became very either key back issue or trade paperback for that story arc used for the movie.
Yep. All the sales come before the movie or the TV show is launched. We'll sell 90% of what we're going to sell based on that show or that movie in the 4 to 6 weeks leading up to it. After that, it's like, oh, been there, done that. We've seen that. We don't need to read it now. So, but we sold a ton.
I put some questions out online to some people when I said I was going to be doing this. There's a couple of really interesting ones. Somebody says here, if you knew what you knew now, would you have started working in comic retail?
F you knew.
If you could go back in time?
I fell
100%.
Yeah.
I fell into it, and I loved it. So yes.
Yeah, my life, good or bad, everything stems from the shop. So yeah,
That's
I
great.
wouldn't trade a second of it for anything else.
That's the heart and soul of this
I
industry.
literally
Right?
grew up with terrible comic book stores, grumpy old guys, that, and I'm like, I want there to be good comic shops that people look forward to and are treated nicely. And I didn't have that as a kid, and I wanted other kids to have that and other people to grow
great.
up and have that opportunity.
I love
So,
that.
Absolutely. I'd still do it.
And to
That's
end
the
on
passion Marvel and DC is giving up right now. That's the passion they're giving up. They should invest in this part of the community.
It's true.
why do you think
Amen.
there is that disconnect? Do you think it's the kind of people working at Marvel and DC don't have the same passion for the industry as the guys who were there 20 years ago?
Nope.
What do you think's the problem?
I don't think they have a list of back issues that they need on their phones.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're invested into the history of the industry, and I don't think they're being particularly good stewards of the characters here 80 years in.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dang.
and we have two separate goals. Like with comic retailers, we're trying to get good books into people's hands that they'll pick up every month after month after month and love. Over at the publishing side, once you get high enough up the food chain, they're just interested in numbers, pushing paper.
Yep.
So unless they begin to understand what we're trying to do, we're not going to get that. It's not going to help.
There has to be a meeting of the minds there between the two. It's not just about making great books that everyone, really, really wants. No one purposely makes a bad comic book. It's always everyone's trying their best to make a great comic. So I try not to fault ones that I don't care for. But it has to make some money, just like we with our stores.
It's
the
true.
Same problem we're stuck in. I can
Just
love
'cause you
8
think
billion
it's-
genies or whatever current book as much as I do, but if I can't convince someone to buy it,
Yeah, it's true.
stupid to buy 50
If you don't
extra
know
copies.
who's going to put
somewhere
down
in
money,
between there. We need someone working at DC and Marvel, or multiple people working at these publishers.
that's like having like a
And same
million
with Image and
followers,
Dark Horse
and then
everywhere else
only
that
1,000
actually
people
is
will
passionate about this
plunk down
industry
money to
beyond
buy whatever
an
you're
employee
putting
that
out there.
feels like he's selling nuts and bolts and doesn't care about the
That
profits.
like false
I think on the industry
reality
side, there's a bit of a
that
cess
followers
problem
and
as well,
likes are going to convert
I mean, people
to
say to me, "Why do you care so much?"
money.
Because you're sort of out the industry in a lot of ways and everything. But I've been into this since I was 5. I can't remember not being into it, right? So I love it and I care that it exists and it's done well. It's just part of who I am, But like, there is a bit of a weird thing. Like some pals of mine, when they left comics and went into film or television, they said it's so good not having to deal with all that stress, like people trashing me online and all this kind of thing,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, meeting other comics people was the most exciting thing that ever happened to me. I remember walking into a comic shop when I was 12 or 13 and thinking, okay, it was like one of the mutants going to Xavier's school. I was like, okay, I'm here with my people now. It's like I understand this world here. Like, do you feel comics has lost a bit of that?
It's like going to
the comic
Comic-Con.
store is no longer a hub for people to hang out or.
No, I think that's the one thing we have to offer, that they're not getting online. And some guys that have gone digital have come back and been like, I really liked coming here. I could talk with other people.
Yeah.
You guys understand me.
I never
Yeah,
got
and
into
that's one
digital
of our
comics
key
for a
services that we
big part of that
provide.
reason.
Is being able to relate and understand, because it's kind of like going to see a movie by yourself. As soon as you're done, you want to tell someone like,
Yeah.
that Godzilla film was amazing. This is probably
Yeah,
the best
it's
I've
true.
ever seen.
It's that,
if
like,
no one's there next to you,
joint experience.
It's kind of like
Water cooler time.
I've said for a lot of years that comic stores, we are the bartenders to the nerd sect. and we're proudly that, because we're part of that
That's great.
community.
That's great.
And we do care about who's stronger, the Thing or the Hulk. We do care that your 12th level paladin got eaten by a dragon in your last session. I'm sorry, we actually have these conversations because we're the place where you can come and have those discussions.
Yep.
So that's what we
It's
offer
true.
in this
KSSS.
community.
That's a great note to end on. Guys, thanks for taking the time. I know you're all really busy, and I just think, I don't know, I think this should be a regular thing, I think retail is as instrumental in this as publisher or anybody else, it's so weird that the retailers almost never have a voice. And as soon as somebody does say something, they get mobbed, if they say something that doesn't fit the narrative and so on. I hate it. I couldn't stand back and watch Glenn O'Leary get trashed last week. It was horrific, So I don't know, maybe we should do this more often.
Well,
Get it.
Yeah.
appreciate it very much. Thank you for the time, Mark.
All the best,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you for letting us have a voice in this.
Pleasure,
Thank you,
gentlemen. Thank you.
There you go. Wow, that was great. That was really great. Let's see. Let me make sure I got all the things here. Whoa. What was that? Sean had to pop in and out, but he said, for the folks in the chat, Rocky is my brother. We have drawn comics together and been to more comic stores than I can count together. He's my oldest friend. It's true. We had some crazy adventures in college just driving. I remember, didn't we just do a road trip to go to Newberry Comics in Massachusetts, Sean, on a whim? I think I had to develop some film, so I was late. I had to drive it up there instead of shipping it off, and we ended up going to the comic book store. Crazy. CG is like Comic-Con every night, and the artists are actually worth visiting. Yeah, that's kind of the amazing thing about the internet. There's some horrible things about it, but this whole YouTube live streaming world definitely connects you in a way that people are finding that is like a Comic-Con, or like going to the comic book shop. And it's part of the reason why I post those videos on Wednesday, or my Wednesday comics, to talk about the books I found, because Shant doesn't live next door where I can go over to his house and say, hey, check out these books, let's talk about it, so it's now connecting with an outside audience on it. So it's pretty great. It's pretty unique. So are music stereo stores for a different kind of nerd like me? Yeah. It's just finding that community. That's key to comics. Comics aren't meant to just be read in a corner by yourself. I mean, you can, but it's like he was saying about watching a good film or even a bad film. Like, you want to talk about it. Why is it good? Why is it bad? Oh, this is how I would have changed it, or this is what I loved. Like, that's part of the experience. I'm not one of those guys. Like, I have some friends who can go watch movies by themselves, and I'm just not. I'm not that guy. I need, like, I'm a codependent viewer, codependent audience. Let's see. Wow, how old is John? Don't go there. I'm old, very old. I had a friend just recently turned 40, and her husband texted myself and my wife and said, hey, can you send a message? She just turned 40. And we're like, oh man, just turned 40? We're like, we were old. Sean and Jetty Art, and we're eagerly awaiting you and Rocky to reenact So I Married. Like, yeah, maybe. Thanks for recommending it, Sean. That was a good one. We have a piper down. Piper down. We have a piper down. Oh man. See, that's the fun part about just sharing in an experience about with entertainment. Oh my gosh, so good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, if I could claim back those, go back in time. I don't know. I think I really enjoyed my 20s, 30s. 20s, that's when I went Shant, right at the beginning of my 20s. So it was fun. Thank you, Comrade Sammy. I appreciate that so much. But as we know, can't judge a book by its cover. I am dust on the inside. Age is a matter of mind. If you don't mind, it don't matter. Sounds like a quote from an old person, John. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, thanks, you guys. I'm going to let you go. I've spent a little bit longer than I thought, but this was fun. Thanks for joining me. I didn't know how many people would pop up, but I really appreciate you guys coming. And if you aren't, you must have been subscribed, because how else would you have known? But if you aren't, please do, and like, and just thank you for connecting with me. This has been such a weird thing, but it's been really fun. And it's just like walking into a comic book store, seeing somebody grab the same book you're grabbing, and just trying out that comment of like, oh, did you check out this and this? And then knowing that, like, finding out that they're into the same stuff you are. That's what this feels like. So, and then just joking about dumb things that we grew up with. That's part of it. So, I really am thankful that you guys all showed up and were so active in the chat. Thanks, Rocky, in the chat. Thank you, John. Thanks for being an awesome chat person. I'm internally old, if that helps. Yeah. We're all old one way or the other, whether on the outside or the inside, we're all old. God bless all. God bless you, John. Wasn't, am now, thanks to Shant. Old? I could say that about Shant too. Anyway, we'll see you guys soon. I am going to try and do a Wednesday comics. I don't know. I'm actually traveling again. I know, it's crazy. Last minute trip. But I'll try and get one out. It might be a weird one. I might delay it. I don't know. It's all crazy. I'm just trying to be consistent. Either that or I might do some shorts, some YouTube shorts. I tried that last week and that was kind of fun, and got a lot of, a good amount of views. So maybe I'll try doing that. That's easier to produce and quicker. But remember, oh wait, let's see. Let me get these last few. Later taters, good time groomsmen. Thank you, Mr. Monkey Boy. Remember to like and subscribe. Well, yes. Thank you, comrades. Sammy, Avita Zane. God bless all. Subscribe. Thank you, Mark's Music Obsession. I appreciate that. I hope to see you again around soon. Bow. Take it easy. More bande dessinée. Hey, you know what? I'll figure it out. I will get some more in front of you, Mr. Monkey Boy. See you guys, everybody. Have a good evening. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.